Well, good morning. I am Dr. Dwight Ford, and I have the privilege of serving as the President and CEO of Project Now. Today is a good day. This is a day that we have gathered for the purpose of announcing during this press conference the efforts of a long-standing relationship that has been in existence for years with the City of Moline and Project Now. And then there's also a satellite assortment of wonderful agencies, networks that are being woven into the fabric of an existing relationship that allows us to do meaningful work with measurable outcomes. And so our efforts today is to lengthen that long-standing relationship. It is no mystery that this municipality has welcomed our agency and many like ours into its landscape and boundaries. We've been able to do wonderful things since my tenure, and we started with electronic devices during the COVID era for seniors and children that were in our Head Start program. And then we moved on to start thinking about partnerships, and we rooted and grounded a wonderful initiative now that's moved from a block party to an entire event for the Greater Quad Cities, which is the Hispanic Heritage Block Party and Fall Festival, that now we utilize that to bring in service providers and networks to support families as well. We continue with Level Up, and allows us now to invest dollars in a very strategic way to families to strengthen them, to make sure that they would not tip over the edge and fall into dire straits, and unfortunately maybe even walking through one day an initiative like this. So it's been this ongoing development of a relationship, not because of the winter blast that is just around the corner or the one that just happened, but this is something that we've been working on for months. And it now finally has come to fruition that we can make this public announcement. So this partnership is between the City of Moline and Project Now, and this effort allows us to do some wonderful things. This particular, and I don't want to be able to take some steam out of the engine, so I want to be able to invite very quickly up the mayor of this very fine city. We've had the privilege of working together and doing some wonderful things, and I believe this is just the first initiative that tips us over. And so rather than me announce what we are going to do, I want you to hear it from the very fine mayor, Mayor Sangeeta Rayapati.
Well, welcome everyone. I'll just get straight to that point, which is we're here to announce that we are opening a temporary winter shelter run by Project Now in this space behind you and this lobby tonight at 8 p.m. But I'm also here to kind of set the record straight on what the City of Moline has been doing in terms of sheltering options. And I'll frame my remarks with the fact that I grew up with a Midwestern raised mother who not only brought me up with the phrase, do better best, never let it rest till your good is better and your better best, but also with the phrase, do the needful, that is what we are called to do. And that is what the City of Moline, the City Council, who's here today, and our leadership and our staff have all been doing as part of our comprehensive strategy or around housing. And I'm wearing the t-shirt that kind of announced this in 2023 at my State of the City address. And we started a Moline Housing Task Force, and they started compiling lots of information and best practices, tried to create a roadmap for us. And so contrary to some belief that local governments haven't been doing anything, we've been hard at work at this process to strategically address housing needs, because I'm tired personally of Band-Aids operations. We need strategic structural solutions. So this is just the latest piece of the puzzle to fall into place for us to address the needs of this really large ecosystem around housing. Just this last year, I'm really proud that our council members take seriously the idea of having ward meetings and talking with residents and finding out what really matters to them. And First Ward Alderwoman Debbie Murphy started us off in the spring, March, late winter, early spring in March with a First Ward meeting, and the idea of shelter and how to help homeless and not have them breaking into homes or living in the ravines, et cetera, was a top part of conversation. And that's when we first very openly said, this community has never had a shelter. And it's time we start thinking about how that will meet a need, right? Or do the needful. That conversation continued on with mayoral listening posts, which I've had a history of doing for all 5 years, just about, that I've been in office. And we, again, very openly talked about this need and how the community would need to grapple with this. So it's not been hidden. We followed up with a sort of comprehensive chat in December. Some of you were at that listening post, and tried to explain where we've been and where we're headed. And where we're headed is to continue to diversify housing types by funding programs like Level Up, which keeps people out of the need for this kind of solution. We're trying to address zoning reform, all as part of the recipe for major systemic housing solutions. We don't want to stop with a temporary shelter. We are committed to exploring local solutions for a permanent shelter. And I'm really pleased that over the past several months, we've been able to engage, especially Mr. Vitas and myself, with the members of the Big Seven, right? The cities and 2 counties, to talk about what that looks like. But I will say, I want to say very clearly, I am personally hyper-focused on local solutions. We're working with our Illinois provider, community service provider, and we're able to have these conversations with our regional partners on the Illinois side of the Quad Cities and move things forward well. So I'm looking forward to being able to provide more updates on that as we go in the next few months. We also need to be discussing transitional housing needs. We need much more of that. We, of course, need permanent supportive housing, and these are all the pieces of the puzzle on the pathway to getting people out of this cycle of temporary housing. So know this, just because the City of Moline does not talk incessantly on social media about what we're doing doesn't mean we're not getting anything done. And I just want to encourage all of our residents to pay attention to what we do put out there, to come to the events we have, to share with you what's going on and be a part of the conversation. We're going to keep doing those kinds of things. We have a strategic, status and information report that is published every single month as part of our agenda. You can find it on our websites. You can see absolutely every initiative that's part of our strategic plan and where it's at in the process by quarter. So I think those are ways that we keep our public informed. And one of the things that should be there, if it's not, we will update, update our status and information report, is this chart that features what we're calling Project Uplift, right? It talks about the almost $1 million we have set aside in fiscal year 2026 for these kinds of initiatives. We are adding the emergency supplies that the council voted to approve funding for, $25,000 just back in late December. Existing things we've been doing for quite some time, and this is part of the roadmap for this overall Moline housing plan, and especially as it relates to sheltering solutions. So I encourage you all to take a look at Project Uplift. And with that, I will say my thanks to everyone in Project Now, to all the staff. It was wonderful to stop in yesterday, help out a little bit, and also chat with staff who've been a part of preparing this space. And I truly enjoy seeing their joy in doing something really meaningful for the entire community. With that, we'll bring up Mr. Vitas, our city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, well, good morning. At least it's bright and sunny and blue skies. I don't think it's going to stay that way, but that's why we're here. I think the mayor covered it quite well. You know, this mayor, this council has spent the last 4 years trying to address housing needs for everyone. You know, not just those who are looking for apartments and those looking for single-family homes to live in, or rental units, houses, multifamily buildings, but taking a look at the unsheltered population. One of our strategic goals, and it's really important, was to increase housing opportunities for vulnerable populations. That's a strategic goal. That means that it is a top priority for the city. So as we move forward, not just today with the opening of the temporary winter shelter here, we will be looking for a permanent solution. That is a top priority for this year, because we don't want to get to every December when the weather gets cold and be trying to address this issue, you know, like we did here, you know, just rapidly. We want to have a plan. I want to take some time to thank our public works crews who came in here and got this building back up and running. Our fire department and our fire marshal specifically, you know, who came in here and looked at this alternative as well as other alternatives that the city had available and making that a reality. The contractors who came in and got the system working, our fire alarm as well as our hydrants, or not hydrants, but our sprinkler system working. You know, I want to thank KJ in particular, who's worked on this tirelessly with me. I mean, I don't think a day's gone by in the last 2-3 weeks we haven't been talking every day, trying to make this a priority. The entire CED department for their support, letting her do that, you know, just breaking away from everything else to make this happen, you know. There's a lot of people involved, whether it's the CED department, the Public Works department, the executive department, you know, the legal division. Everybody had some part to play in this, so it's been a huge team effort. I also want to step up and thank Project Now. They have been a right-hand partner for years. And I think, you know, Reverend Ford spoke eloquently about where we were at and how we got where we are today. And that's just this relationship growing. So as we look forward to a future sustainable solution for the vulnerable population, and wherever that will be, believe me, we will explore every nook and cranny, you know, here on the Illinois side of the Quad City, as well as within the City of Moline, and work with our partners in East Moline, Rock Island, you know, to try and make this a tenable, sustainable solution, so that when we all go to bed at night in our warm homes, we know that these folks aren't on our streets or in our ravines looking for somewhere to get out of the cold. So with that, I want to thank you all for coming today, and Bridgepoint 485 welcomes the vulnerable population tonight. Thank you. With that, I'd like to introduce Alderman Timian.
Thank you all for coming. This is within my ward, which is the 4th ward. Yesterday, when we were setting up the cots, KJ Whitley said to me that 25 years ago, the council at the time told her we would never have a shelter in Moline. And we can celebrate the change of tone over the decades, but in my experience, Moline has a long history of rising to the occasion to meet the needs of the people who live here. And as a bit of a little history here, about over 100 years ago, where we stand was a lumber yard. And that served to build houses and buildings of the city at the time. People wanted a place to meet and congregate, so we built the first city park right over there. Time moved on and we needed industry. Montgomery Elevator Company established the very building that we're standing in right now. More time passed. We needed more connection. We built a massive bridge connecting Illinois to Iowa right here in this parking lot. After KONE left the location, a new kind of connection was established in this very building, establishing people's spiritual needs and a higher purpose, serving the faith community and nonprofit sector for over 5 years. The story of Moline is a story of a community that changes and adapts to the needs of the people who live here. This building has done that time and time again, and is once again adapting to the needs of the people society has forgotten and who need emergency shelter. It is fitting to me that this building's final application will be giving back to the community that has fought so hard for it over the years. It's my honor to represent the city in this area, and the city that always changes and adapts to the people who live here. That's the story of Moline, and that's why we do what we do. I am especially thankful for the nonprofit partners who are stepping up as well to help us. And I'm thankful to the city staff who were told no 25 years ago, but persisted in doing the right thing and saw this through. So this is a moment of celebration, but it's a recognition that this is just one more chapter in a city that is always rising to the occasion. And so thank you all for coming today. I'd like to introduce Ron Lund from Project Now, the Chief Operations Officer. Thank you.
As we prepare to bring our Chief Operating Officer up, Ron Lund, and kind of go through the litany, I wanted you just to be mindful of the integrated realities that we have between a municipality and a service providing agency that has this municipality, among others, in its service delivery area. What we have been striving for the last 5 years is a city willing to be one of the anchors to an effort to show that when you have these type of relationships in a meaningful way, we can actually do measurable work. That when we actually strategize together, and this team, of course, Bob, with your team, and of course, Alderman, with all of the council that I've ever had the privilege of sitting with and discussing out loud, working through things, and of course with you, Mayor, of having that relationship where we take nothing for granted. We ask questions and we query. It is because we ask the hard questions we can get to a better sense of solutions. Albert Einstein's mother is said to have asked him every day when he came home, what great questions did you ask? Not what great answers did you give? It is the questions that allows us to get closer to the solutions that we absolutely need in this day and time. And so with being anchored here, in more than one way, we know that this is a space that is temporary. But what is not temporary is our relationship with each other and our effort to make sure we have a long-term solution that allows us to move poverty backward and move people upward and allow people to take advantage of what we call life with opportunities. And one of the individuals that helps kind of lasso an enormous agency in a municipality is Ron Lund. He's going to come and kind of give the layout of the Lift Now Center, and then I'll come back and introduce some more of our team members. But would you help me to welcome Ron Lund.
Thank you, Dwight. I'd like to, I think I might be the fourth person. Your staff have been amazing. We absolutely could not have pulled this off without all of the city staff. I know some are here. Thank you. Next cup of coffee is on me. With that said, so how is this going to work? We are going to open, as the mayor had said, we're opening tonight at 8 p.m. The shelter will run 7 days a week, starting tonight until April 15th. Operations will run 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. So then the question is, what happens at 7 a.m.? At 7 a.m., individuals will leave. We'll have a 15-passenger cargo van here to take them to Center Station, to where they will be provided a bus ticket and then be able to go wherever they need to within the Quad Cities to gain the services that they need to be able to secure housing. That could be through our partners, the Third Place, Christian Care, or quite frankly, right back to Project Now at our Rock Island office. At the end of the night, same thing. When those locations close down from their daytime to nighttime operations, they'll be able to jump on the bus and come right back here. So the question is, what do we do on weekends, right? The Third Place, the day shelter, is not open on weekends. Thankful to the Rock Island County, this building will become a day shelter on Saturdays and Sundays. So when we open Friday night at 8 p.m., we are open 24 hours until 7 a.m. Monday. We've got the capacity to serve 60 individuals at any given time in this building. Sounds like a lot of individuals. This building will be filled. There unfortunately will be people turned away still. We are working with other partners that once we hit capacity, We are looking at hotel motels. We are looking at other ways. Just because we hit capacity in this building does not mean we're done. It just means this building has hit capacity and we need to shift to another model. Thank you.
You heard Ron talk about the extended weekends, and part of this comes out of the brain trust or the wisdom treasure that we have of having done this last year. Our partners with Christian Care, thank you for being here with us today. We learned a lot of valuable lessons, and be honest with you, as we have a chance now to bring on additional partners and think more strategically, we'll run for almost 12 weeks. In last year's operation, we ran for 12 weeks, and 14 people are still housed today. We moved 14 people from that shelter from off the street into adequate, stable housing, and that they're still stable and housed. This is the kind of measurable outcomes that we can have as we work together. And that goal, of course, is going to be stretched, and we're going to work extremely hard to move people. And one of the things that allows individuals to be moved up and out is the Northwest Continuum of Care for the state of Illinois, and that's headed up by Amanda Irwin. She's going to come and kind of give you some information. And without the continuum of care that provides the local geographical area with the funding supports, but also the kind of capacity supports to help shelters stay abreast of the latest information, but also to get the numbers that we need documented so that the government then sends the resources that is needed. We've had over a 44% increase in homelessness from the 23-24 service delivery season. But now that number has been exacerbated. I know that for sure. These numbers are skyrocketing. And one of the things that helps us is that when we get proper data, the resources continue to flow here. And one of the individuals that heads that up is Amanda Irwin. Would you help me to welcome her?
Thank you, Doug. This is a very, very exciting time for the continuum of care, and we thank the City of Moline and Project Now for their extraordinary responsiveness to community need. We are very hopeful that this effort is ushering in a totally new era of responsiveness to the needs and desires of folks in our community who are experiencing homelessness. And I want to drive something home. What I just said was folks in our community who are experiencing homelessness. And like the alderperson said, this is an effort to serve community members. Some community members sleep indoors, some community members sleep outdoors. And we are introducing some new data elements this year that are unique from other shelter operations, where we will be asking our folks, where did you sleep last night in the Quad Cities? Are you from the Quad Cities? And do you want to stay in the Quad Cities? Our population of community members who sleep outdoors invest in the Quad Cities. They work here. They raise their families here. They are members of this community. Tomorrow night is going to be our annual point in time count, and we will not ask folks, are you from here or not? They sleep here. They are one of us. And the Quad Cities accepted me a year ago when I moved here. And we find that folks who are born and raised in the Quad Cities sometimes experience rejection from the communities that raised them because they sleep outdoors, or might experience substance use or PTSD or other mental health conditions. The stigmatization of homelessness is ending because of this effort. This is an effort to move forward in ending stigmatization of homelessness. And we are very, very much looking forward to not just this year, but seeing what happens with this effort a couple of years down the road. The 180 folks who were served at Project Now's winter overflow shelter last year, 14 of those are still housed, as Dwight said. 50 people were served a few weeks ago at the MLK Center partnership, and we will be able to accommodate 60 people per night here at this shelter. That's still not enough. And like Ron said, we are going to be making arrangements for folks who unfortunately are not going to be able to stay here. But we're very much looking forward to not just sheltering, but long-term housing options in the Quad Cities for the folks who need them. Thank you very much.
We appreciate the Northwest Continuum of Care. Without you, this would not be possible, and the undergirding of funding, but also strategic direction that you and your board provide is invaluable. She talked about the shame and disgrace ends now. Martin Berg would always remind us that the principal suffering of the poor is shame and disgrace. And we want people to feel as if they are not only welcome, but fully, completely human, full stop, period, and deserving of the resources, the supports that we all will come into need, as right now 51% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency any one day of the year. We're not talking about them, we're talking about us. This is a part of the community as a whole, and we want to make sure we secure as many as we possibly can. And one of the leads to that is Kathy Jordan. She oversees, as the director of our homeless prevention and housing stability programming, that allows us to be able to search through and make sure if they have any benefits that should be afforded to them are allocated to them. Make sure we pull off of the coordinated entry and get into first month's, last month, and deposits to get them on their feet, to move supportive dollars to assist individuals. Would you help me to welcome Kathy Jordan?
Thank you, Dwight. Thank you to the city. I am honored to talk today about an anchor. Everyone deserves an anchor of hope, and housing is that anchor for all of us in this community. I am honored that I have a team of professional caseworkers that work diligently with the coordination entry system through our continuum of care to place people into housing. We have many levels of housing, and while that's not necessarily the details we need to talk about today, what we need to talk about is that everyone deserves housing. We work with people with mental health issues, with substance abuse issues, with financial woes. We work with people that have children displaced in the system. We work with people that have never been homeless before because they lost a job, or they got sick, or maybe they made a bad choice with a partner or a spouse. What's important to know is that housing is what we do at Project Now. We work with wonderful property managers and landlords in the City of Moline as well as others, and we find solutions to move people from homelessness to housing. And then the caseworker follows them to ensure that they are connected to resources, that they have the referrals to our partner agencies that can help them move forward to become self-sufficient and again, regain that dignity and respect that we all need. Housing provides that. And I am thankful today that this is just the beginning step, because my team will be working with people that will be spending the night here. You may see someone in the grocery store and not realize that they spent a night in a shelter and now are in a program funded through state or federal dollars to help them get back on their feet. We are all together in this. Project Now is simply a very good modality to move people forward, and I'm honored every day to see people take keys, put them in a lock and unlock a door, and then the journey begins for them to be independent and self-sufficient and regain to be a part of our community again. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. There are a number of other individuals that we will list by name, and of course, one of the most instrumental personalities that we have as a board team that will be here at Ground Zero each and every day, leading the team that will be here, a team of 10 individuals hired. Last year we were able to hire 7. This year we've been able to increase that. And I want to thank, and I want you just to identify by raising your hand, Ms. Chris Downey, who's our lead. She's our director of the Lift Now Center. Thank you. Thank you. And so we're excited about her leadership and what she is going to do with a wonderful team here in this place each and every day. Also want to thank Moline Police Chief, Chief Darren Galt. Thank you for your tireless commitment to be able to partner with us time and time again in many ways that you do. You and your entire force have been a friend to Project Now, and particularly the officers assigned to those experiencing homelessness. So again, out loud, thank you. As a matter of fact, we learned things from last year of how to keep communities connected and informed. I believe our team has already made presentations to the police officers before they go out and assume their responsibilities. I think we've had three separate, two so far, third coming up. But it takes that kind of cascading communication, allowing each and every person to know what we are doing and how we can be reached over the season itself. I want to thank Chef Yolanda Graves Jefferson as well for providing a wonderful meal over the weekend for us, and that will continue throughout the season. Rock Island County Board, and I could not do this without the county board. Last year, you were our first set of partners financially to step up and stand alongside, and we thank the board entirely, and the 708 Mental Health Board for resources, Robert Young Center as well, and during the time that we were at the Martin Luther King Jr. Center running almost 60 straight hours, we were able to get 18 assessments, mental health assessments scheduled, because when people are with us, we have a chance to be able to engage and be able to work them through the processes that allow them to experience more of life itself. The third place has been an invaluable partner through this process. They will be with us all of the journey. And of course, Christian Care, the longest standing shelter in the Rock Island County that provides wisdom and supports and knowledge, but also first-class service provision for those that are residents with you. We have come to this bearing in knowing, as Soren Kierkegaard said, that life must be understood looking backward, but it must be lived moving forward. So we understand where we are simply because of what we've been through. The truth is that 99.99999% of our life is already behind us. The second we call the present just slipped into the past. So we can fuss and fight, or we can build, because building takes a lot of hands. The African proverb says that many hands build the home that one set of hands cannot. This is not simply possible because of Project Now alone. It's not simply possible because of the city, as wonderful as the team is here, alone. It takes a lot of people coming together to take care of everyday folks. We want to avail ourselves to you and any questions that you may have immediately following the Q&A. There's a tour of the Lift Now Center now at Bridgepoint 485 in the beautiful city of Moline. I couldn't be more pleased that we're at this stage of the journey. Questions? Yes, sir.
Right up, gotta ask about cost and how this is happening and what it looks like financially, you can tell us.
Sure. There are investments. We're in a MOU with the city. We have always prepared. Our funding that comes from the state allows us to pay rent and make investments into the locality itself. So there's a standing MOU that allows us to take care of the necessities so that it would not be a burden on the city itself. So whatever those costs are associated with the bare minimum of heating and water and things, we bring those resources. They are not hard for us to provide. We have $107,000 in the pipeline, $165,000 that we had already secured in total from last year's effort. And so that allowed us to increase staffing from 7 to 10. And then we're still taking donations and support as we go. As you know, it's one thing to have a budget for this. It's another thing that once you get into the reality, you have to respond to the emergencies and the needs at hand. But we're prepared for this.
Staff of 10, you said?
Yes.
Have you been working specifically to talk with specific hotels in the area to see what their capacity is and if they could provide overflow shelter?
So, great question. The city of Moline has a wonderful relationship with the existing footprint of hotels. And so we have a relationship, but we also rely upon the established relationship that KJ has been facilitating for years, quietly, consistently. And so we have those numbers because we just had to come through a partnership with the city of Rock Island, the city of Moline, where those hotels were our place of rest for the residents that needed them the most. So we're not only looking at the capacity of those hotels, but we're also looking at the capacity of our sister shelters within the city range itself. where we are at any given night. Anybody that has ever ran or facilitated a winter overflow shelter knows that every night it's a call. You're calling an audible every night. So if you have more here than you can facilitate, you're on the phone immediately. Because at the end of the day, boundaries get real thin when we got to try to save a life. And so we have to know what people are. We have to know where their availabilities are, and we move people as needed.
How do they find you and how do they get here?
How do they find us? I think the network of communication, there were people that were unhoused yesterday and almost the day before that knew this would be coming today. Before we opened last year, they were already coming to the building 3 or 4 days in advance. The network of communication, I say that tongue in cheek, but we facilitate communication through Christian Care, the townships. Most of the service providers that already see people unhoused will get that information in the blast. They will move it for us, and it won't take long at all. Officers have it. They'll communicate. As this is the winter overflow low barrier shelter, meaning that the entirety of the Quad Cities will utilize this. And that's what I think about the capacity of this city. They did not come and just say, hey, we only want to do this and take care of Moline residents. They said we want to take care of people. And do they have a first commitment to the people that are residential here? Sure they do. They're elected officials and staff. But they never limit themselves when it comes to humanity. And that's why this is one of the most favorable partnerships that an agency like ours could have, because we start with the necessity and not just what is convenient and comfortable to speak about. Nothing about this is easy. The only thing about this is necessary.
I want to tag on to the nothing about it is easy piece. I think it's really important for the public to understand, when they go and see certain buildings that are empty and say, why can't this be a shelter, or what can this turn into? Those aren't wrong actions to take, but there are a lot of requirements for a building to house human beings. And that's why some buildings haven't worked out. That's why it took so long to find a place that did work, whether it's capacity or whether it's a working sprinkler system or any number of building issues. So it's not just as simple as saying that building's empty, why don't we put people in there, right? And I want to give a shout out to Mayor Freeman. They tried to work and find a space for Project Now before we got to this. And it's just not as easy as people think it is. So I think we are all breathing a sigh of relief, especially before this terrible weekend we're expecting in terms of weather outdoors, that we could make it work in this space.
And thank you, Mayor. I have always kept my confidentiality, and I'm glad that she gave a shout out to the city of East Moline and Silvis, who we've been in conversation with, and others. No one even knew that we were engaged in this because it takes time. And there are things that we have to overcome. And so most of what people saw at some of the more public exchanges with another city, and people assumed that it was them or nothing else, was never the case for us. We never, ever backed ourselves into a corner. We knew that this was going to have to take a broad approach and looking to see where the best possible solution could be, knowing that it's never been all of us. It has always been enough of us, a critical mass, to make change for the majority of us. It's never been all of us. It's only been enough of us working consistently behind the scenes to make change for all of us. This is going to help transform the entire Quad City landscape, because the courage and the political will and the commitment to find a solution and work through very difficult days and hard-pressed nights to try to get it when the sands of the hourglass flow but in one direction. We were running out of time. And I didn't want anybody to be frozen between two cars in a fetal position with ice chip blankets on. that we would have to remove from the ground. We were not going to have that on our conscience. So to have this and have it to work out the way it did in the time it did, we're grateful. Thank you, sir.
I want to ask a two-part question. It has a financial part and then an infrastructure execution part. You had Lift Now in the same time period last year. What do you think you take from that to this? Like, what was the learning process? What did you learn, both in terms of financially and in terms of execution and the needed infrastructure?
Sure. Please
Make
go
sure
ahead.
just make sure you let me speak to the three principles that I think we need for this.
I'm
after.
happy to do that. Did you
It's
want-
related.
Oh, it's related?
Well, let me
You go right
put it
ahead.
this way. Yeah, I really appreciate, as has been mentioned, the open relationship we've had with Project Now. We can talk with them. We implement programs with them when we need them to do something differently, or what our staff is asking for some kind of report or whatever. They respond to us. And what I appreciate that Reverend Ford chatted with me and with KJ, I believe we were the ones in the room, about what they had learned last year, right? This was months and a year ago, probably, right? And it's clear that the day shelter piece is absolutely essential. We don't want anyone to encounter bad relationships because there's no place to go and no resources to engage with. So that's been key. I've told our staff, it must have a day shelter attachment in some way. So I'm very, very thankful for the third place. They also spoke with KJ and I back in late September, I think it was. So we were familiar with what they were going to be able to provide. Secondly, transportation. Making sure people have a way to get to and from, right? Again, that's not just leaving people to their own devices and then potentially encountering negative interactions in the community on anyone's part, right? So that is essential, and that is what we will continue to look for in more permanent solutions. The day shelter piece and transportation are absolutely crucial.
Thank you. And I'll piggyback off of that. What we learned last year is that when we first started having some of the initial, and you've been covering this for quite some time, and you remember that we were very forthright in saying that there have been a number of incidents with local businesses that have been disturbed. One is that we created a day shelter an extended day shelter between our agency and Christian Care, which was a warming center, but we provided that in mass, not just one or two or three or four people coming. Everyone that was in that shelter went straight to there. Although we can't bar people in, that's not what this is about, but we want them to feel welcome enough to stay with us for the day itself. And so we opened up our building from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and we had individuals with us 21 to 22 hours out of the day. That was a lesson we learned in time and circumstance. And it provided for us a way. I knew once we had that warming center, I knew we were going to move people up and out of homelessness because I could build relationships. As soon as we could keep them with us, rather than the normal winter overflow shelter breaking at 7, then people are off, and then they only come back at 9 when they're exhausted, cold, angry, tired, and just want to sleep. We get the day, you get warm food, we talk, then I find out more. Kathy's team and working with the continuum and the resources that are needed, we can get people up out of there and get them secure or get them additional services through mental health or addiction services that may be needed. That's the first. Weekend work. Many of the interactions that were negative were when my staff was off. And so for the weekend, we could not, last year, manage the weekend at all. So besides the 7 a.m. coming from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m., once that 7 on Saturday hit and 7 on Sunday, they were out in community. And then we would come back on Monday with a lot of the frustrations in that. Thirdly, we created what we call the Good Neighbors Initiative, that if anyone called, we were there within 15 minutes. If they can deliver a pizza in 30, we can get there in 15. And we did that every time. They called on Sundays and we still had someone there in 20 minutes. And by the time we finished with that Good Neighbors Initiative, and we have still the framework to that, it's a city business partner and Project Now relationship where our team hits the street and then not just waiting for things to happen, but we interact with local businesses that are in foot traffic way and say, hey, we are from Project Now. If you happen to have a few people that come in and maybe are asking for supports, or maybe they look like they are in need of assistance, would you call us? I never use the language if they look like they are homeless. We don't use that language, because then people start painting folks into a certain imagery that they have. Who knows who is experiencing homelessness? Because the new face of homelessness is not the person that is in tired and ragged clothing alone. They're the woman that has a cell phone like you and I, that drives an SUV like you and I, that dresses similarly to what we do, sleeping in her truck with her 2 children with all their belongings in it, washing up in a Casey's bathroom in the morning, sending her kids alongside of ours to school. That's why we never ask, because people see people downtown and say, oh, they got homeless folk down there. You don't know who's who. And many people, and our team can attest, sleep in our shelter and go to work every day. And this is what we want to rip out of the atmosphere, these bad misinformation, misnomers, and myths about people experiencing homelessness. That's why I said it's not them, it's us. Yes, ma'am.
Do you consider the work you're doing in the City of Moline, is this a new frontier of civil rights?
I would dare say it's a new frontier of appropriating human rights. And civil rights, more often than not, are a result of how we see humanity. And if our lens is clouded and full of debris, we'll see people in distorted ways, and we'll infringe upon their civil rights. So we're going to push being human. Yes.
I'm going to add one other thing. You've asked a series of financial questions. I think my residents also wonder, where is their money going? And you can look at the Project Uplift, programs. You can look at our budget and see how we dole money out. But I think it's really, really important for every one of our local communities to understand that Moline is doing well economically because of really steady financial decisions that are being made based on really good recommendations from our super talented staff. And that's not hyperbole, right? There's a steady pathway to growth. There's a steady effort to not defer maintenance, because that just jacks up the costs of everything we are really called to support in terms of infrastructure and basic needs for our residents. Steady plans that are working. I'm kind of quoting our finance director right now because of that. And that's why we're able to do things like redo 11 miles of road one year. We're still, people get frustrated because every time they turn around, there's a new road they can't drive on because we're fixing it, right? We're able to do that and replace lead pipes and all of those things, and save a little money to do this kind of work, social service work, and meeting, as I said, do the needful, meeting the needs that we know are out there and not ignoring it. We don't turn a blind eye. We just make decisions in a way that keeps things balanced so that we can meet these needs. And so I can't thank our staff in economic development enough for constantly working to bring in projects that benefit the city financially, for keeping an eye out on that so we're not getting screwed, pardon my language, by bad business agreements, or going back and reviewing previous agreements to make sure they're in good shape so that we're protected. And also having a mind for the set aside, right? The Level Up program is funded by cannabis tax income. It is not funded by property taxes, right? So we have found ways to take buckets of money and preserve them for this work. And I just encourage all my colleagues in the area to continue to think about approaching their city needs with a much broader lens. I remember early on in our time on council, one person said about the child care program we funded with ARPA dollars, well, this is a really great program, but it's not what the city should be doing. I don't know, but I think helping people get to work because their kids are taken care of helps our economy, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that program has worked over the last 3+ years. I think in the Quad Cities, we must look at the place of government, the role of government, as much broader than pipes, police, and pavements, to use a phrase I've learned from some other mayors. We can do more, and we should do more.
So with that, was there any immediate strategies that maybe surrounding cities can implement to kind of approach this effort in the same way that you guys have?
I think their city councils need to be bold in terms of zoning reform. We have passed an ADU ordinance. Granted, only one is being built. But that's the point, is everything that people fear about zoning reform tends to not, come to fruition because fear is a powerful driver, and we need to use modern urban development principles. That's inclusive zoning. We have a history in this country of not inclusive zoning. What's the word I'm looking for? Exclusionary zoning, thank you. And that's huge. I remember Reverend Ford at the round table that, what was it, IDA or HUD hosted at the Moline Police Department, probably all the way back in 21, 22, saying, why does the community I grew up in look the same way that it did when I grew up there? Why haven't these homes been improved? What, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's because politicians or elected officials need to be strong and bold in voting for inclusionary zoning and creative ways to house people. And so we continue to slowly walk that way. We're all three cities, major cities on this side, are engaged in comprehensive plan redos right now. Those comprehensive plans should feature inclusionary zoning. So I guess that would be my encouragement as opposed to challenge to my colleagues.
So you seem to be saying that housing, I think there's been a little bit of a portrayal of unhoused people and efforts to help them is an impediment to development in certain areas. And what you're clearly saying is that there should be a more integrated approach where maybe people, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, I'm saying that you really need to do both. You need to address systemic issues. You cannot just deal with Band-Aid approaches to these issues. Economic development is such a complex system that is so impacted by housing. I mean, we're always talking in the mayor forums I go to, the conferences I go to, about kind of chicken and the egg situations, right? You build the housing and the companies will come. The companies will come if you have the housing. You have to focus on housing and business development at the same time. And I do understand that my city is uniquely privileged with the financial situation we find ourselves in, but I think that that's not by accident. That's on purpose, and I wish success to all of my colleagues, but I think it's a combination of being bold with zoning reform, housing solutions, and Mr. Vitas kind of jokes with me because I kind of approach these things with a fearless attitude. I do want to recognize that some people's fears are well-founded, but we have to move past them. We cannot let them be the stumbling block or the thing that stops us from making progress.
As we prepare to make time for the tour, for someone that has worked in all of these cities, for someone that has lived in all of the named Quad cities, for someone who has made a life investment of this work in crisscrossing the state and this nation and doing work internationally, there's no way you can build anything that is lasting unless you build people. The greatest asset to any city is its people. I'm not opposed to seeing large buildings and growth. I'm not opposed to seeing wonderful, expansive initiatives. But unless you have people that will be willing to take their hard-earned dollars and reinvest in what you just built, it will not be lasting. So my responsibility, this agency, is to work with municipalities so that we can increase the disposable income that folks will have in a sense of pride and investment, because when you invest in a human life, you'll yield a lifetime of return. Buildings will one day decay. They'll be torn down one day like this one. And we'll do the best we can with what we have. But what is transferable is how people feel connected to one another. And I'm thankful that in the city of Moline, who now has become a connectivity point for the whole region, because one of the things that we have pushed is shelter in place to challenge other cities. Because what we don't confront, I can guarantee you we'll see again. Things don't go away because you write an ordinance. People don't leave because you didn't want them there. And we got to become better. And as we build big buildings, that is not the marker of a mature city. A mature municipality deals with the necessary and finds a pathway forward. And I'm glad we have one today. Welcome to the Lift Now Center.